You know what it is. That's right. It's time to talk money with your money nerd and financial coach. Now, tighten those purse strings and open those ears. It's the Money Talk with Tiff podcast.
Hey everyone, I am so excited because I have Leslie Danford on the line. Now, Leslie's here to talk to us about something I've never talked about on the podcast before, and that is attracting investors for your startup. So, hey Leslie, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for coming. So let's just dive right on in. First and foremost, what are investors looking for? Well, first, actually, let's start off with defining what a startup is. So who are we talking to right now?
Oh, that's a great question. And in my definition, I have a pretty broad definition of startup. I would call it anyone who is trying to start their own business and get it off the ground. So that could be services, that could be making products, that could be opening a retail shop. I think in my mind, it's more about the mentality. It could be starting a podcast. In my mind, it's the mentality of kind of going off on your own, creating something that's new and unknown and kind of seeing that through.
Gotcha. Okay, yes. And I'm glad that we defined that because everybody's definition of startup is different. And I think most people, when they think of startup, they're like, oh, tech companies, because that's usually what gets that's usually what people think about most. That's what gets the most attention. But here we're talking to pretty much all aspiring business owners. So with that being said, what are some things that small business owners can do to attract those investors and capital?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this and I have a couple of thoughts. So one is to break down your business to the very most basic building block. So in my case, my business is called Vitaminis. We make juice shots, functional juice shots. So for me, the most basic building block of my business is a juice shot, one single juice shot. If, for example, you were opening multiple restaurant locations or retail locations, your basic unit would be a retail store. And then to really look at your business in terms of that one unit. Because I think when people think about startups, they think, oh, they don't have to be profitable. It's okay to lose money as long as you're growing and that kind of thing. And that is true to some extent, but that basic unit has to make sense. So in my case, if it, the cost of making a juice shot and then the price of selling a juice shot, you have to be able to make money on that one unit. And then sure, the overall business might need to lose money for a little while till we get to scale. But if you don't have the profitability or demand at the unit level, you'll never make it. So I think that's one thing that investors really, really look for. And the other one is a little bit different, but the other one is mentality. And I have been learning this lesson. So I started Vitaminis. I had the idea in 2020. I launched the business in 2021. So it's been about 3 years. And this is something I'm still learning. But that old saying of like, you have to believe in yourself for other people to believe in you. Mm-hmm. I really think that's true with investors. And I come from a more traditional business background, bigger corporate companies, et cetera, et cetera. And when you're pitching your business to investors, it is very much a sales pitch and you have to sell the thing. So even if you're doubtful, even if you're not sure, even if you have a bunch of questions, you are selling this thing like it is the best new thing out there. And you have to believe it. Like you have to do whatever you need to do internally to believe that you really are going to make it work. You really are going to figure it out. It really is going to be the next big thing because that has to come out in these conversations. And so that's a big one. And you're going to be doing that not just with investors, but with retailers and other partners as well. So those are a couple of the initial thoughts that I had.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm going to back up a little bit because
Sure.
The first thought, I want to stay there for a minute because one thing about small business owners is we treat our business like our babies, right? And so we're like, we don't want to abandon our baby, even if our baby doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. We still don't want to abandon our baby. So I'm glad that you brought that up because if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. And a business is a business. So I just wanted to reiterate that point because I've actually been in a situation where I had a business and it made good revenue, but it did not make good profit. And so looking at the profit side of things, I said, I could do something else and make more profit than this. And so I let that business go. And so I just wanted to reiterate that point for our audience that, it has to make sense at that basic unit level, like you mentioned. Otherwise, try something else. Like there's so many different businesses that you can do out here that you really don't have to be tied to that one thing and treat it like it's your baby.
Yeah, totally. And if you want to have a hobby or a passion project that's not profitable, that's fine. I think it's more like you have to know that and understand that, right? Like if you're making doilies for fun and selling them at a loss, great. But that's not a business. So yeah, I completely agree with what you said. And I think sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming to, especially if you don't have a finance background or you're new to this world, to think about like all the profitability and everything. But I think if you can break it down to that unit, that is a good place to start.
Absolutely. And then I want to hit on your second point too, confidence. I will say, like you said, confidence sells. And it's something that I had struggled with for a long time. I used to be like, oh my gosh, I'm not good at sales. I hate sales, that type of thing. But it's because I just didn't have the confidence at the time. And now that I do, things are going better. So I just wanted to, reiterate that as well, that confidence is a big thing. They say fake it till you make it. Well, that's real.
Absolutely. And this is one, I actually started learning this when I was in corporate. So before I started a business, I did a rotation in the sales department, and I worked for this man who was a very experienced salesman. And he gave me some feedback early on. He said, every single meeting you have, whether it's with an external person, an internal person, the CEO of our company, me, anyone, your boss, the very first thing you got to do is open up with some selling points about things you've accomplished. So if let's say you're asking for resources or you're giving a business update, start off, even if it's casual, start off with, yeah, we've had a great week, or here's a win we had last week I'm really excited about. Just slip it in there. And I remember thinking, that feels so dirty to me. Like I thought it was like somehow wrong. And I don't know if this is a gender thing or what. I'm not going to speculate. I kind of suspect it might be, or maybe it's just me. But I was like, I don't really want to like toot my own horn and brag and whatever. But man, this guy was right, because you can do it in such a way that it's not bragging. It's rather celebrating or informing. But if you can do that, you position yourself so much better for whatever it is that you're going to try to do right afterwards, whether it's that ask or that update or whatever it is. So this is not just a startup lesson, but man, when you're in startups, it is like all the more important because it's just you got nothing, you're asking for a lot. So yeah, you need that confidence and fake it till you make it. If you don't have it, do what you can to make it work until you can have the confidence within you.
Yes, I love that. And I'm actually writing that down for future reference. Because when I was in corporate, I always kept track of all of my accomplishments and things and told people, because I was in HR, and I would always tell people, keep track of everything that you do throughout the year. So that way, when it comes time for, promotions, raises, whatever, you have all of this good stuff already, you don't have to jog your memory for it. And I never thought about, hey, in meetings, start off with, oh yeah, we had a great week. We just made $20,000 this week, or whatever the case may be. And using that as a starting place for meetings to start off at the right foot. So I love that you said that, and I never thought about that. So that is a gem right there.
Awesome. Thanks. Glad it helps.
Yeah. So let's go into a little bit more when it comes to investors. So we already know we need to make sure that we're making money. It makes sense to investors. We have to have that confidence. We have to exude that confidence, when it comes to meetings and the ask and everything like that. All right. So we went over those. What are some other things that investors are looking for that we can do?
Sure. So one other thing that I've realized is, as a startup, the whole definition of startup is it's very risky. It's very unknown. If it was known and you knew it was going to be successful, then there would be no risk involved and there would be no pitch needed. So by definition, starting something new is very risky. And so in those earlier stages, investors are investing in you as a person. And I think I knew that intellectually. If someone had said it to me early on, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. But now a couple of years in, I'm realizing that like, for example, you can't just make a deck about your business and talk about how great your business is and expect to get a check early on. It doesn't matter what's on the deck. They need to know you. They need to know a couple things. One is, do you have the grit to make it? Because even if you have the best idea, even if you have the perfect background for starting a business, it is hard. You are going to wake up many days and feel completely discouraged. You're going to be told no 1,000 times. You're going to wake up and wonder what to do with your time because no one's giving you direction and you feel like you just want to scrap the whole thing. And it takes a particular kind of person to continue going on. That doesn't mean anyone can't do it. Anyone can do it, but it takes a particular mindset. And so I think investors want to know that you can do that. So it could be looking at your experience. Have you had in your background other times where you've persevered? It could be in a business setting. It could be in a personal setting. I mean, I have a daughter with special needs, and we've had tremendous challenges trying to get her resources and et cetera, et cetera. So it can be anything, but really demonstrating that you have that grit and determination, problem solving. And also along the lines of investing in you as a person, relationships matter. And this is another one that I think sometimes feels like a little dirty somehow, like selling, but it does matter. What connections do you have to these potential investors? Can you get a warm introduction? Can you have a friend or mutual contact put in a good word for you? That makes a really big difference because then you're kind of a more known entity. So maybe a former colleague can vouch for the fact that you have some grit, determination, you're trustworthy. That's going to go a lot further than you just trying to say it or them trying to pick it off your resume. So that's another thing. I think those connections, building those warm connections, working those connections, that is very valuable as well. And the third piece along the lines of investing in you as a person is build a relationship with that investor. And this can take a lot of time. There are some investors I'm in conversations with that I've been in conversations with for over a year. And when we first met, we didn't know each other that well. The business was still very small. They weren't quite comfortable with writing a check, but I continue to keep them posted. Back to that conversation about selling those achievements. I send a quarterly update to my investors about all the things we've achieved and also, challenges. But I forward those achievements to these potential investors of, hey, just thinking about you, keeping in touch with you. Here's some things we've achieved. It could be that. It could be, for example, if you're considering an update to your business, maybe a new package or a new strategy or a new plan, run it by some of those potential investors. Say, hey, I know you've got really valuable background in this space, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. And I think if you can kind of invest in that relationship that way, make them feel involved, show them your grit and determination just sheerly by keeping in touch and all the things you're achieving, over time, they will build that trust in you. So I think those are just a few additional thoughts about how to get those first couple checks. I think later on, sorry, I know I'm going on and on. I think later on in the business, it's very easy to get checks, right? Like if you're killing it, you're bringing in millions, you've got big names already invested, well, then it's easy. Then everybody wants to get in on that. But in the early stages, it's about you and those relationships and showing people that you have what it takes to stick through and make this thing work over time.
Yes, I love that. I think people really discount relationships and especially in this day and age where everything's about technology and, everything like that, people are more disconnected, it feels like, but that's what makes those connections even more special now. And so I wholeheartedly agree with you with nurturing those connections and keeping in touch. I just sent a newsletter out to my email subscribers for the first time in a while, just because I had a lot going on this summer. And I got so many responses, even from previous clients, from, different news outlets and things that were on my list that are like, oh, we're interested in hearing more, that type of thing. But had I not sent out that connection or sent out that newsletter, then that wouldn't have come about. So I completely agree with keeping people up to date. And I feel like sometimes as business owners, we get taught that business is business. It's not personal. Keep your personal life out of things and your personal things or what have you. But in my experience, I feel like that's what makes the connection deeper. What do you think, Leslie?
Definitely. I definitely agree. And I don't want to like gender stereotype, but I know for me personally, for many years, I purposely did not share a lot about my personal background because I have 4 kids. All these other things that I thought people would kind of take that information and possibly judge me for it. And I do think some people will, like a man who tells people they have 4 kids, it's like, oh, what a great provider he is. And the woman tells people she has 4 kids and they're like, ooh, is she really serious? So I do think there is some risk to that, but I also think this goes back to you have to take some risks and do some sort of uncomfortable things. So whether that's having the confidence and kind of selling yourself, whether that's like reaching out and sharing a little bit more personal information or making that extra point of contact, even if you have a second thought, like, oh, I don't want to bother this person or they won't really care. You kind of have to put yourself out there. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you will get with it. So yes, I completely agree that it's necessary. And the people that share that stuff with me, I think about that. I'm like, the people that share those personal details or thoughts with me about their lives or what they're struggling with or what they're going through more than just the business updates, I do feel more connected to them. I do remember them. I think of them. I wish them well with all their endeavors. And so why wouldn't that be true the other way around? So yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yes, for sure. Well, I think you gave us plenty to chew on today. Now, if people were interested in learning more about you or anything that you offer, how could they find you?
Yes, please come to our website, vitaminisbrand.com. So it's like the word vitamin, but with minis instead of min at the end, vitaminisbrand.com. We're also on all the social media platforms. Our handle is vitaminisbrand. And we are on Amazon and Walmart Marketplace. If you search for us there, and if you live in the Midwest, we're sold at Fresh Time, Farmers Market, and the Fruitful Yield, and hopefully some more retailers coming soon.
Definitely in the future, Leslie. I wholeheartedly believe that with the gems that you just dropped today, I'm sure you'll have no problem getting into more retailers. But thank you so much. And if you all did not get all of that, I'll make sure I have it in the show notes. So definitely check those out. Thank you so much again, Leslie, for coming on the show today. I appreciate the gems you dropped.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening, joining, and being a part of the Money Talk with Tiff podcast this week. You can check Tiff out every Thursday for a new Money Talk podcast. But if you just can't wait until next week, you can listen to previous podcast episodes at moneytalkwitht.com or follow Tiff on all social media platforms at Money Talk with T. Until next time, spend wise by spending less than you make. A word to the money wise is always sufficient.